Something special brewing with the San Francisco 49ers in 2023, currently with the 1 seed. When we say special, we mean special teams as well. Everything clicking, MVP status on the 49ers, all that and more. How special is this season? We'll dive into it on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you, as always, at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there, as usual, that are subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. A special Winky Wednesday episode. More on our guest in a minute. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Oh, a very special football game and a very special season as the 49ers beat the Seahawks this week, as we bring on today's weekly guest, Mr. Nicholas Winkler, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host that still joins me as AKA the voice of the fan here every week on Locked On 49ers. And we have to start this week. We usually end with the Winks Wish Watch. We're going to start with special teams here with the Wish Watch, because we're talking 20 mile an hours of speed with the Aussie punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, fake punt style. I know you had to be going crazy Sunday, Wink, when he opened up that stride, and unfortunately that thing all got called back. But what a play that was. What a fun game in a fun season. The last 3 weeks especially, you go Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks with wins. Just unbelievable stuff right now with these 49ers.
To quote the great Brian Peacock on his Twitter account, it'll never get reversed in our hearts. You know, like it was. Yep. So I take notes as we're going, right? As Wishnowski's punting, because he's my guy, you know? So I got my notepad out. I'm like, here goes the punt. And I just like drop everything and I jump up on my bed. I'm like, oh, and I just start bouncing up and down. I'm going crazy. I'm losing it. And I'm like, oh, flag. It's coming back. I mean, he looked like a real athlete out there. He looked like he was playing some Aussie football or something, or some rugby, and he was just going to get it. Wishnowski making us all proud.
He is a real athlete. He'll hit people too.
He will.
I wonder if, because there ended up being offsetting penalties. What was the penalty on? Was it the late hit?
Yeah, late hit
out of bounds. Yeah,
Wishnowski went out of bounds.
So it was really weird with the whole thing, especially like just replaying the down. All right, from my understanding of the rules, a late hit out of bounds is a dead ball penalty, isn't it?
Yes.
So I would have thought that the initial flag, which was, it looked like an accident on Ronnie Bell, slipping and then kind of cut the guy down. All right, you have that flag in play. I thought that would be, the penalty would start from there, right? Like if you have holding, and if somebody holds, 60 yards down the field, they mark off holding from that spot. So I thought that they would mark off the penalty of the cut block from the spot of the foul, and then tack on the 15 yards for the personal foul late hit, since that was a dead ball penalty, but they just canceled it out. So I was a little confused by that.
Well, it's because they're both personal foul penalties. Because it was a personal foul chop block. If it had been like a hold or an illegal block or something like that, I do believe you're right. I think it would have gone like that. But since they were both personal fouls, they immediately offset each other.
Gotcha.
Could the 49ers have declined the penalty? Then it wouldn't have offset anymore?
Interesting. I don't think so. I think when it's personal foul,
would have been erased. It would have just been a penalty, but I don't know.
I'm sure they would have given Kyle that option if it were an option, and Kyle definitely would have taken it, because that was one of the more exciting plays of the year. I mean, Wishnowski calling his own number. Like, it wasn't even a fake punt. He's just like, hey, I see a little opening over here. I'm going to go get it. And he got it.
It almost looks like he was maybe predetermined in it because, excuse me, he bobbled the ball a little bit. And that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, oh, a little slight bobble, then he's going to kick the ball. And then he took off. So I wonder if the bobble came because he's seeing like a side of the field kind of opening up and maybe got a little excited, took his eyes off of the ball for a second to see if it's what he thought he saw, the look he thought he got. Is it really that? And I think that led to the bobble. And then he just took off. And it was very interesting to hear. His special teams coach had no idea. Kyle Shanahan had no idea. They do have certain built-in looks. Like if you get this look, you kind of have the option. But he called his own number, and his players loved it. I thought that was really exciting to hear, like, the players' reaction to it.
Yeah, it was his third or fourth punt too. So he'd probably seen that look already, and he probably saw it earlier and was like, "If it happens again, I'm gonna go get it."
But then you didn't tell your special teams coach, like, hey, if I get that look again, I'm going to take off. Like, I think he should make a decision if I take it. And he took it. I mean, you talked about his miles per hour. He was screaming down the sideline.
You got to run that one by your coach, though. Like that, it was funny because when they interviewed after the game, Kyle, and they interviewed Mitch Wishnowsky, they still hadn't talked about it yet. So I want to hear what that conversation was. It's like, hey, good job, dude. Don't ever do it again, because you got to run that by your coaches. But it was amazing how I mean, it's funny because you get. And this happened a couple years ago. Remember when the wide back stuff first started happening with Deebo Samuel and and a lot of it was Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan. It wasn't something that they really had planned. All of a sudden, they're like, well, this kind of works pretty good. Maybe we should do more of this, right? And so I wonder if it's one of those things where like they never even thought about it. And they're like, that was a pretty good idea. Maybe we should implement this a little more. Hey, Mitch, you got the green light if you see it, if it opens up like that. And he can go get it, man. That when he opened up that stride, 20 miles an hour, that was as fast as Christian McCaffrey ran on his 72-yard touchdown run, barely over 20 miles an hour.
Watch for Wishnowski packages now on the offense. He's got to be ready for it.
That was one of the things with Wishnowski coming out. Like he was a good athlete. Like they talked about that. I think he was get lost in that, or why he doesn't look like an athlete. He has those hideous long sleeves. Like his field flag is just disgusting. So it doesn't really look like an athlete. But then you see him take off, and you're like, oh yeah, they did say he can move when he was coming out of college.
Yeah,
he laid some people out when he was doing kickoffs back in the day.
He's got the just standard issue. Like, all right, Mitch, here's your uniform. He's like, okay. Then he puts it on. That's it.
From the team store.
He like walks in with his clothes on, doesn't even change his clothes. He just puts the uniform on over his clothes. He's like, all right.
He got to take off the tag.
He's got like cut off jeans underneath his uniform.
He had a good day. Another good game for Wishnowski, though. Since we're talking about him, let's do the week wish watch. 5 punts, 2 inside the 20. He did have a rarity in this game. He had a touchback. It was only his second touchback of the season for Wishnowski. That's third best in the NFL. The two guys that have less touchbacks than he do, they also have quite a bit fewer punts than he does.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking about inside the 20 as well, he's third best inside the 20. The two guys that have more inside the 20s than he do have twice as many touchbacks or 5 times as many touchbacks. So Wishnowski, just the stud that we all know he is.
And Womack almost got to that. So it almost wasn't
it bounced out to 6. Yeah, he almost got it.
Yep, that was a bad bounce. It was a good punt, just bounced the wrong direction. And yeah, Womack was there. Womack's got some speed on special teams. Like he can get down there.
Mm-hmm.
He's made more than a few in just a few games of really good special teams plays on those coverage units. All right, a special season contains special teams as well, but even more special than that, is this the year for the San Francisco 49ers next? Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. As the weather gets a little colder, NFL offers stay hot at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins on that $5 money line bet. So if you've been thinking about giving FanDuel a try, join right now. There's no better time to get in on that action and use that extra 150 on spreads, player props, over unders. Bet on those 49ers to win the Super Bowl. There's draft props. There is when's the next coach gonna get fired props, and so much more. Every single sport, you can find that action at FanDuel, and you can get an extra $150 to play with as well if you win that first $5 money line bet. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So looking at ESPN, they've got playoff odds, and the 49ers are almost lapping the field as far as Super Bowl odds go to make the Super Bowl. The 49ers right now, 51% chance, according to ESPN, to make the Super Bowl, and we know they're going to start clinching playoff berths and divisions, so I don't even want to go into what's going to take to get that, because that's going to happen.
49ers already clinched. They clinched last night. First team to clinch.
With the Giants win over the Packers, right? But, I mean, that was going to happen, and they're going to clinch the division as well. 51% chance to make the Super Bowl, though. The next closest, not even halfway there. The Dallas Cowboys are 24% in the NFC. The Eagles, 17% chance to make the Super Bowl. And if you go to the AFC, still not even close. The only team above 25% there is the Baltimore Ravens, who the 49ers are going to see in a couple weeks here. The one seed and Christmas, and hopefully those teams still are the one seed. 36% chance to make the Super Bowl are the Baltimore Ravens. So with everything going on with the 49ers, and I want to talk about some MVP stats being put up by multiple players on the San Francisco 49ers. And this isn't like a jinx thing, like saying, hey, the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. We've been on this quest for 6, guys, for 30 sticking years, right? Like this, it's been a long time. This is the 49ers' best chance. As far as Super Bowl windows goes, it doesn't really get a lot better than what the 49ers have going into this 2023 last 4 games of the season and into January, even better than the 2021 chances, even better than 2012, right? This is the best chance. This is the biggest wide open window the 49ers have to go get that 6th Lombardi Trophy. Do you guys disagree?
Some really good years from the 49ers. You look at 2022, just last year. I think that was a really good team. They were cooking. They were heading in the right direction. There were still a little bit more questions about Brock Purdy. How would he play come postseason? And obviously, there's an asterisk next to that loss against the Philadelphia Eagles. But you look at this team, I'd say just a combined offense and defense might be the best team we've seen in a really long time from the 49ers. I got a comment on my YouTube channel today. It's like, it doesn't matter, go win the Super Bowl. And it's like, well, of course, like that's the goal, but you have to put yourself in position to even have that opportunity. And I would say the 49ers, the way they've constructed this team, the coaching and how well Brock Purdy is playing, you don't know who's going to, hoist that Lombardi at the end of the year, but the 49ers definitely have given themselves the best opportunity to be in position to get that. And I think that 51 or 50% chance that you just talked about reaching the Super Bowl, I would say that's about right.
Yeah, because you look at the season so far, you've mentioned it's been a great season. It has. We whooped up on Dallas, Philadelphia, Seattle twice. I mean, this is a team that it wins the games that it needs to win, right? This is also a team that has 2 5-game winning streaks. How many teams out there and fan bases have never even seen a 5-game winning streak, right? They're like, what is a 5-game winning streak? What are you guys talking about? You guys are crazy. And this is a great football team, offense, defense. I mean, the only time we saw those 3 losses were when 2 of their key players, probably the best tackle in football and probably one of the best offensive weapons in football, were out. And the 49ers struggled a little bit because of that. So if this team stays healthy, I mean, there's not a team out there that can stop this 49er team. So that 51% might even be a little bit low.
You don't want to be overconfident, and I'm sure the 49ers players aren't overconfident, but there's a lot of confidence happening, especially when there's no more boogeymen either for the 49ers. Right. You look at the other teams that have the best chances to get to the Super Bowl instead of the 49ers, the Cowboys and the Eagles. I mean, that we've seen that already this year, and they would be coming to the 49ers if they do get that 1 seed. So the 1 seed is still pretty important, and that's the next prize for the 49ers is to stay there, because they do control their own destiny to get that 1 seed. But the Seahawks aren't the boogeyman anymore. The 49ers have rattled off 11 straight against the division, could be 12 against the Cardinals, and you got to go back to I think it was we were asked this question earlier this week, and Nick Wagner of ESPN brought the info. Great timing by Nick Wagner, by the way. The 49ers now won 11 straight division games, longest active streak in the NFL, and one shy of matching their longest streak since the 1970 merger. They did win 12 straight against the division in 97, 98, and they could obviously tie that one this week. So, I mean, just phenomenal what they're doing. And it becomes less of, since January, it's been like, oh, the Eagles, you circle it on the calendar. You got to be able to beat the Eagles. They've been the 1 seed for like 15 months, right? And they go from 1 seed last week to the 5 seed because not only the Niners, but the Cowboys are leading the division now as well. And so when you start to slay those dragons, there's no boogeyman anymore for the 49ers. It's not the Seahawks. It's not the Eagles. Like, you're not like, and again, you don't want to be overconfident, but there was some question, and especially how the game started in the first quarter. It's like, oh man, are the Eagles better than the 49ers? The 49ers are playing against themselves the rest of the way. They are the best team, and I think it's clear.
So does that set up this weekend? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Wink.
Well, I'm just asking, you mentioned all that, no more boogeyman, and you don't want to get too confident in that. But is that actually setting up like an ultimate trap game this weekend? Because you're talking about a Cardinals team that's coming off of a bye, doesn't have anything to play for, and maybe you are kind of looking a week ahead towards that Baltimore Ravens game on Christmas. Like, I'm not going to lie, I am very worried for this weekend. Not because I think the Cardinals are that good of a football team, no, but this is the NFL. And guys go out and they give their best. They have their Super Bowl moments, right? When it's not in the Super Bowl. And this might be one of those for a division rival. So I'm worried going in, guys.
I wouldn't say worried, but you do have to respect a divisional opponent. The Arizona Cardinals, they haven't really been good this year. They do have Kyler Murray back, and we know how dynamic he could be. And we've seen times where, 49ers were the favorites going into a game, and all of a sudden Kyler Murray, pulls something out of his butt, and he ends up doing some magic tricks, and they end up winning. And we saw that for a lot of years with Seattle. But I'd say right now, with how the 49ers are playing, any game for the rest of the maybe not Baltimore, but outside of Baltimore, any other game, it kind of would be a surprise to see that they lost. And I like that Peacock said at the 49ers, there is no boogeyman, because in the past, I mean, you can look at, oh man, okay, you win this game. Oh man, but you might have to play Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
I say there's still one, right? It's Kansas City.
Right. But I don't even think you're thinking of, like, right now with how they're playing. It's like, I'm not scared of them. Now, you have to respect them. I still respect them. I still think somehow, some way, they will end up in the Super Bowl. But they're kind of like Michael Myers to me, where, we've seen all these different Halloween movies where Michael Myers dies, and then all of a sudden you see a preview for the next one. It's like, well, I thought he died. Then it's like he comes back from the dead. I feel like that's Kansas City, where there have been a couple times in the past where I thought they were down and out. Then all of a sudden, come postseason, they end up start to cook, they get it together, and then they end up in the postseason. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. This might be the weakest version of Kansas City that I've seen. Maybe they should have gotten DeAndre Hopkins when they had the chance, because they are suffering at the receiver position. But as far as the 49ers go, we just watched them play a game that was not their best game by far. I mean, we're talking about fumbling, not being on the same page with a guy, throwing an interception, multiple punts early in the game, penalties, all these things, and yet you still win by 12 points. Like, that is the signs of a team that's really good. And at this point, and again, like Peacock said, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, right now it does feel like the only team that can really beat the 49ers is themselves. And we saw that. We saw that against the Cleveland Browns. We saw that against the Minnesota Vikings. We saw that against Cincinnati Bengals. Not playing their football, not even close to their best, like playing bad football for most of the game, and then trying to pick up the pieces late. Yeah. So unless something like that happens, which clearly, throughout most of this season has been an anomaly, it will be hard to see an Arizona Cardinals team beat this 49ers. Ravens have a better chance, but it'd be hard to see the 49ers not winning out. They definitely have to beat themselves.
And speaking of looking over opponents, we saw 2 upsets on Monday Night Football. One of those favored by 14 points. Niners are favored by 13.5 against the Cardinals. The Titans were 14-point underdogs, and not only beat the spread, they straight up beat the Dolphins on the road too. So, like, that can happen. So anybody can beat anybody in the NFL. So it's not a cakewalk just because you're the best team. You still got to bring it every single week. And the 49ers are still playing for that 1 seed. They're going to have to bring it this week against the Cardinals. They're going to have to keep bringing it and play their brand of football if they want to make the Super Bowl, even though they do have the best odds. It's not for free.
Did you watch that game?
I watched almost all of it. I had to leave for a little Christmas party, so I missed the end of both of those games.
You left at a time. Really, I feel like in both of those games where it felt like one team was supposed to win, and then the other team ended up kind of like pulling it out. Mm-hmm. That Miami game was supposed to be over. Like Miami was up multiple scores, and Tennessee they fumbled the ball away, gave up a touchdown. Like the game looked over, and all of a sudden, down 14 points, they drive down, score a touchdown, go for a 2-point conversion. And then on the opposing drive, Miami Dolphins get a little, I don't even want to say soft, but it's just like, all right, we're just kind of get a little conservative here. They ran the ball 3 straight times. And then all of a sudden, Tennessee has a chance to go down, score, and win the game because they had just went for 2 the drive before. I mean, it was kind of, if I'm Miami, I kind of feel some type of way about letting a game like that get away from them. And that's a game. 49ers have lost some games. They have not lost like that. That would piss me off.
You start talking about resumes too. And the Chiefs are still that team looming for the 49ers. But like the Dolphins resumes is awful. They haven't beaten anyone. And then they have a big loss like that. Like they put up 70 points on a team, right? But they're not putting up that kind of points on the 49ers. By the way, Raheem Mostert, a couple more touchdowns. I enjoy watching that team. But Tyreek Hill, if he's banged up, now we're start talking about him dropping out of the MVP race. Maybe we'll see what that ends up looking like right? The year. Christian McCaffrey, Offensive Player of the Year. So I want to get into some stats and some of the cases that the 49ers are bringing statistically to win some of those postseason awards next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. PrizePicks is some of the most fun you're going to have playing fantasy football this season. And while you're having all that fun, guess what? Win up to 25 times your money as well. The easiest and most exciting way to play DFS is just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and potentially some sharks in the pool, you just pick more or less versus those PrizePick projections. 2 to 6 players, you pick more than or less than on those stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, potentially turning $10 into $250. And PrizePicks is the only fantasy sports platform that offers the reboot policy. If a player gets hurt in the first half, doesn't return the second half, that player is rebooted. So check out PrizePicks for yourself. Download the app or go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for that first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, looks like Croc stepped out, so we'll see if he comes back in.
He's in the blue medical tent real quick. Yeah. He'll be back on the field. Don't worry.
In the medical tent. I hope he jogs off the field, though, like Tyreek Hill did on Monday Night Football. So I want to start talking about some stats. And I know there's some haters out there that don't want to give Brock Purdy credit, but I'm not going to amplify those messages because when you watch Brock Purdy, like that's the difference. We talked earlier, Wink, about how this 2023 team has a better chance to bring home that Lombardi versus the 2022, the 2021 team, the 2019 team, the 2012 team. Whatever team came close for the 49ers, this team is better. And what is the most resounding reason why they're better, Wink? It's because of the quarterback play. Like Brock Purdy is doing great things. He's doing special things. And you can be a hater all you want, and you can think he's the 20th best quarterback in the league. This dude is flat dealing, and he is seeing the field. He is getting the ball to his playmakers at every level of the field and then letting them do their thing. And yes, he is getting help from those guys, and he is getting help from Kyle Shanahan. But what Brock Purdy is doing, I can't believe there's still people that aren't believers. And I just assume those people aren't watching him play because it's phenomenal. And I want to go into some stats here in a second, but Brock Purdy to me is the MVP. And if and I want to talk about some McCaffrey stats too, because he's going nuts. But this is just ridiculous what the 49ers doing, potentially 3,000-yard receivers as well.
Yeah, I mean, those people are clearly, like you said, either not watching football not watching Brock Purdy play football, or they are just haters. I mean, come on, we've all done that thing, right? Where we're like, oh, I don't like this thing because everyone else does. Like, it's been a long time for me. Like, I think it was late in elementary school or something. People were getting really into the Beastie Boys, and I was just like, Beastie Boys, come on. Too many people like them. Like, I didn't even know any Beastie Boys songs, but all of a sudden I was just like, nope, don't like the Beastie Boys. I don't know why. And then I think I heard Sabotage one day and was just like, oh my gosh, I need to go listen to all of this. And their back catalog is amazing. And so maybe someday these people that are hating on Brock Purdy will actually sit down and watch him play football, because he always looks poised. He never looks rattled. He knows where the ball needs to be. He knows where his guys are going to be. And he puts the ball exactly where it needs to be. I mean, it's incredible what Brock Purdy is doing right now for this 49er football team. He's everything that Kyle Shanahan wanted Jimmy Garoppolo to be, and he just wasn't. And Garoppolo showed that when he went to Las Vegas. He reminded everybody that how much better the 49ers could have been if they had Brock Purdy back then, because I mean, what doesn't this guy do when the pocket breaks down? He steps up or he runs, and he's got all the moves. He's got the arm strength. There was a pass. It was 55 yards in the air on a dot to Deebo Samuel on Sunday. And you're just like, what are these people looking at? How do you not see that throw and think he is the MVP of football? I don't get it. Maybe somebody out there can break it down for me. Oh, he's got too many good players around him. What MVP didn't have great players around him? Come on.
And what's funny is when you start comparing his season to past seasons, with even including his playmakers, you start talking about Peyton Manning in 2004. Guess what? He won the MVP. You know what he most closely resembles is 2016 Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan, right? Who had a lot of weapons, and they ran the ball well, and they threw the ball well, and the greatest show on turf, right? He's doing things that we haven't seen from a yards per attempt and from a efficiency standpoint that Kurt Warner was doing. And guess what? Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and Marshall Faulk. And guess who was MVP? It was Kurt Warner, right? So you're just hating for the sake of hating. You're hating because you don't believe, and you want to stay not believing if you don't believe that Brock Purdy is doing special things right now. And the thing that's really going to help him the most is he's starting to not be just crazy efficient. He's starting to add the counting stats on top of it. Now, Tua jumped back over the top of everybody with the most passing yards this season, but Brock Purdy, he was at 2 after Sunday. Now he's number 3. He's got 3,500 passing yards. He's on pace to break the record for most passing yards by a San Francisco 49ers quarterback. And so the counting stats are really going to help, because you can start to explain away the efficiency numbers and help this and this and that. But then when you start seeing him on top of leaderboards, which we haven't seen 49ers quarterbacks as far as like just straight up passing yards and touchdowns and some of those things, I think that's really huge when you're talking about something like an MVP award. Although he's just barely ahead of Dak, and I think Dak is in the lead, and he's the betting favorite to be the MVP. And I get that, but Brock is right there, and if he keeps doing what he's doing, man, it's pretty unbelievable. And he's gonna take down some records by Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about numbers, and they've been amazing, right? You see him; he's near the top of nearly every offensive quarterback statistic. It's impressive, but it's the eye test. It's go watch the football games. If you're going to vote for MVP, you need to watch every snap this season, because there just hasn't been very many bad throws from him. Like every once in a while you'll see it, and it's almost like a shock. Oh, whoa, because we're not used to that anymore. We're used to Brock Purdy putting the ball where it needs to be. And if it's not getting caught, it's because the defender made a play on it. It's not because he made a bad throw. You watch a little bit of that game last night, Jordan Love, you're like, whoa, who is he throwing that ball to? Same with Will Levis. What was that pass?
Yeah.
You just don't have that with Brock Purdy. You're just not seeing the bad passes, the inaccurate passes from Purdy. Where he wants the ball to go is where the ball goes. He passes the eye test 10 times out of 10.
And just the way he sees the field, like he finds those open playmaker. Okay, someone's open. Guess what? He finds it. He finds it when it's the third read, when it's the fourth read. Deebo Samuel's the last read on that touchdown pass. He found it and made the bucket throw over the top, deep ball throw. And so it's just phenomenal watching him operate the offense, and it's surgical in some ways. 9.89 yards per pass attempt is the most in 67 years. I mean, this is what we're talking about. And now he's getting more and more volume, 350 passing yards last week, to put those counting stats up there as well. Number 3 in passing yards, 3,553. Second in passing touchdowns with 25. His completion rate percentage is number 1. Touchdown to interception ratios tied for 3rd in the NFL. Yards per attempt, I just mentioned, is number 1. So it's the counting stats is something, the volume of the passing game. If that continues the way it is trending for the 49ers, that's really going to be the thing that might put him over the top, and people might start recognizing him, with those, seeing some bigger throws like he showed off last week, to potentially win that award. And by the way, Christian McCaffrey on pace for a 2,000-yard combined season, rushing and receiving, 1,500 rushing, 500 receiving, and then you got 3,000-yard wide receivers potentially as well. But Brandon Ayuk's on pace for like 1,400 receiving yards. Debo, something like 1,000 receiving yards and a few hundred more rushing yards. And then George Kittle as well on pace for 1,000 receiving yards. So when you have a quarterback that facilitates 3,000-yard receivers and in a team that kind of wants to be run first, I mean, it's phenomenal what this offense is doing right now.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to chime in on this, but definitely you see Brock Purdy and the way that he's throwing the ball to all levels of the field. That was a big question that a lot of people had with, kind of the lack of arm strength, or how important would it be? Clearly, he has more than enough arm strength to make every throw that's needed so far. So you heard Trent Williams kind of talk about it and say, made every throw. In my opinion, there ain't no throw that he can't make. And I think every week that he goes out there, he's proven that each and every week. Anybody that's pushing back on anything with Brock Purdy at this point, they're just kind of being delusional or haters. And it's okay if you change your mind. I was one guy that felt like, man, you might need Trey Lance to be the best version of Trey to reach the pinnacle. I'm off of that. Like Brock Purdy and what he's done, he's proven each and every week. And even if he had to go a little bit further to prove people because of his draft status, it's very clear that he's a very special quarterback with special ability. So it's been really fun to see. The last thing I am waiting to see, just that super killer instinct, right? Like my big brother, he just left, but I remember him telling me about the story of Tom Brady and my big cousin Tyrone Gross. He played for the San Diego Chargers. In 2007, they were in the playoffs, and it was a San Diego home game against the New England Patriots. And my brother said he was looking at Tom Brady on the sideline. They're down 8. It's late in the game, and Tom Brady's just standing there looking at the crowd, and the crowd is just giving it to him, right? Like, he's on the road. You're bad. You're trash. We got you. We're gonna beat you. And then he just went out there to the field. He didn't say anything. He just looked at them, shook his head, went out there and just boom, 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 touchdown. And then had to get the 2-point conversion. Got it. Boom, tie game. They got the ball back. Boom, 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 boom. Field goal to win the game. And they advance in the playoffs. And it's like just having that super killer instinct. And anytime you're getting mentioned in the same sentence as a Tom Brady or Drew Brees, you're doing something right. But I would like to see that element. And if he gives us that, I mean, we're talking about, will he be, the next Joe Montana? I don't want to go that far yet, but we're seeing a lot of signs that it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, you don't want to put it on him yet, but he's playing that way. He might not be the next Drew Brees, but he's playing like the next Drew Brees right now. It's currently happening. So respect that man. Put some respect on his name. Stop the hating, because he's here. He's the dude.
Stop addressing the haters too. Like, to me, there's no point every single day
dunking on him
game.
Yeah.
Having to tweet out what Daddy only throws checkdowns. Like, anybody that's saying that, they're clearly not watching the games.
Yep.
So don't even worry. Don't waste your energy on those people. I see that all up and down my timeline. I saw from KBR, they posted a video and it was like, he only throws checkdowns or something. And you see more explosive passing plays from him. Ignore those people. Don't waste your energy. 49er fans, you have a quarterback that's playing at an extremely high level. Enjoy it. Don't worry about the haters. 49ers best team in the NFL. He's the best odds right now, or maybe second. I heard he dropped to second behind Dak just this week. But it's right there for MVP. I don't think you have anything, or he has anything to prove to anybody outside of this fan base and this coaching staff. Everybody loves him.
Because more importantly than MVP and all these individual awards and everything, is just winning football games, right? And it's getting out there and going and that quest for 6. And you can tell that's the kind of guy Brock is too. He doesn't care about all that stuff. He just wants to win the football games. And he's won 10 games this year. So that's pretty darn impressive. And just keep going and then prove all the haters wrong just by winning the whole darn thing.
Yeah, I think we'd all rather have a Super Bowl MVP for Brock Purdy than a regular season MVP award for Brock Purdy. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Croc and I back tomorrow. It's time to start digging deeper into these Cardinals and a little crossover on Thursday. And, of course, we'll do it all again every single week, every single day, as we do here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Talk to you then right here, Locked On 49ers.
See you.